All right, let's get right into it. Behind every single company you love, every product you use, there's this hidden world. It's an invisible network of partners and suppliers that makes everything work. But what happens when the trust in that network gets a little shaky? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today. I mean, really think about that for a second. Your favorite brand, they don't do it all themselves. No way. They have to trust other companies with their data, with their manufacturing, maybe even with you, their customer. So that begs the question, who exactly are these partners? And how much can they really be trusted? The scale of this is kind of mind-blowing when you stop and think about it. We're talking about the company that processes your credit card payment, the cloud provider that's storing your personal info, even the factory halfway across the world that makes one tiny component, or the call center that answers your questions. Each one is a separate company, a unique link in this huge interconnected chain. And that's where the danger lies. See, if a key supplier suddenly goes under, or a data processor has a massive security breach, the damage doesn't just stop with them. Oh no. The fallout, the hit to the reputation and the operations can be absolutely devastating for the main company you thought you were dealing with. One weak link can, and often does, snap the entire chain. So, how do smart companies protect themselves from this? Well, they don't just cross their fingers and hope everything turns out okay. Not at all. They build a system, a really structured framework that's designed specifically to manage these relationships and make that chain of trust as strong as possible. It's called third-party risk management, or TPRM for short. And you can think of it like a proactive shield. It's this formal process to make sure that any partner a company works with is being held to the exact same standards, and that any risks they might introduce are understood and, more importantly, under control. It's about managing that entire relationship from the very beginning to the very end. And that whole process has a really clear life cycle. It all kicks off with sourcing the right partner and then doing some serious homework on them. That's the due diligence part. After that, a rock-solid contract lays out all the rules of the game. But it doesn't end there. The company has to constantly monitor performance to make sure they're keeping their promises, all the way until the day the relationship is formally and safely ended. Every single one of these steps is a critical checkpoint. Okay, so having a system is great, right? But how does a company actually know if its system is working? How do they know it's not just some fancy policy collecting dust on a shelf somewhere? Well, that's when you call in the inspector, the internal auditor. This is so important to understand. You have to see the clear separation of duties here. Think of it this way. Management is on the field actually playing the game. They own the relationships, they're dealing with the risks every single day, and they're using that TPRM framework they built. Internal audit? They're the referee. Their job is to provide an independent, totally objective view to make sure the game's being played fairly and by the rules, and that the rule book itself is strong enough. And this isn't just a good idea, it's a core professional standard. This quote from the Institute of Internal Auditors really just nails the auditor's mission. Assess the quality of the entire system. Are the plans well designed? And maybe even more importantly, is anybody actually following them? So what does this inspection actually look like in the real world? Come on, let's peel back the curtain a little bit and take a peek inside the auditor's playbook. At the end of the day, it all comes down to finding proof. It's a systematic process of asking some really tough questions and then verifying every single one of the answers with cold, hard evidence. And this table gives us a fantastic look at that checklist. An auditor is going to test every stage. For sourcing, they're looking for one thing: accountability. Is there one specific person who's responsible for this high-risk partner? Because if there's no clear owner, things can easily fall through the cracks. For due diligence, they want to see the receipts. They'll ask for proof that someone reviewed the partner's financials and their disaster recovery plans to make sure they can survive a crisis. When it comes to contracting, they're going to look through that fine print for a critical right to audit clause. That little clause is a superpower. It gives them the ability to go in and investigate if something seems off. And finally, for monitoring, it's all about the follow-through. Are those checks actually happening, and is there a paper trail to prove it? So, here's the bottom line. The audit transforms this whole process from just a promise on a piece of paper into a verified reality. It's the independent proof that the company isn't just hoping its partners are secure and reliable, it's actively making sure of it. All right, so we can see this is a pretty intense process. But why go through all this trouble? What's the actual payoff here for the business and, for us as customers? the benefits are just huge. A really solid audit process does way more than check some compliance box. It actively cuts down the risk of fraud and operational meltdowns. It can even find ways to save money. But most importantly, it protects the company's brand and makes sure that our sensitive data is being handled correctly, no matter whose system it's on. It basically strengthens the entire organization from the inside out. And you should know, none of this is happening in a vacuum. This whole approach, from the management framework all the way down to that audit checklist, is guided by really strict, globally recognized standards from professional groups like the Institute of Internal Auditors. That's what ensures this is a high-quality, consistent process, no matter where in the world you are. So the next time you're interacting with any company, just remember that invisible network that's working behind the scenes. And maybe ask yourself, how strong are its links? Because in our totally interconnected world, a company is really only as strong as the partners it chooses to trust. Is their chain of trust truly built to last?